Wow. 10,000 subscribers in such a short period of time. Just a few days ago, I was at 5,000. I am so grateful to have you on here watching my videos. Oh, I surpassed 1 million views too, shortly ago. You guys have been amazing. Just amazing. Thank you so much. To celebrate you watching all of my videos, I think I'm going to rate them in terms of what's more realistic. I've talked about these videos, how realistic they are relative to reality, but I haven't ever really talked about them in terms of how realistic they are relative to each other. I hope you enjoy. So here we are at our tier list. Let's see what we got. Armageddon. Armageddon. Crazy asteroid detonation scene that would have involved the use of all of our nuclear weapons combined. Wouldn't be nearly enough. Gonna go with mostly unrealistic. Not totally. I mean, the idea of using nuclear weapons to deflect an asteroid isn't entirely unrealistic, but would have had to have been a smaller asteroid or many more nukes or possibly intercepting it early along before it got this close to Earth. So I'll just go with mostly. Atomic Twister. Totally unrealistic. Just about everything wrong with that entire movie. And above all else, they didn't even show like this big nuclear green tornado. I was expecting that. So not only was it unrealistic, it was also pretty boring. So that is one thing I'm gonna do with this list, is I'm gonna make some creative decisions if they're relatively close to each other. So Atomic Twister definitely gets some discounts by them taking the bad movie too seriously. Back to the Future. Back to the Future. So when I look at this, I'm mainly looking at the nuclear stuff. Their plutonium wasn't that... It looked nothing like plutonium. But in principle, the amount they used of plutonium and the amount of biomass and the lightning thing... The lightning one seemed the most plausible. The plutonium, though, just looked weird. And biomass they need a lot of, but I guess they could do it off screen, so maybe. Gonna go with mixed for Back to the Future. Bill Wurtz. He did such an excellent job with that History of the World video. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun to watch, and that's definitely our most popular video, is my reaction video to that by a lot. It's at well over 500,000 views by itself, which is insane. For him to have done a whirlwind like that, I thought he did pretty good, but don't know if I can have him go higher than mixed, though. I'd put it above Back to the Future, because Back to the Future had a bit more out there, but did mention about nuclear weapons causing the end of the world, which they just wouldn't have enough firepower to. The intro was pretty good, though, so you know what? I'll take that back. I'll move it up to fairly realistic. We'll may need to shuffle it, as you often do when you have lists like this. Command and Conquer Generals. No green glow, but orange glow. And reactor plants without actual reactors. Is it more realistic than Armageddon? It's probably about the same. But is it as unrealistic as Atomic Twister? I'm gonna rank it above it because it's at least a video game. In video games, you kind of have to have a bit more acceptable breaks from reality than Atomic Twister, which took itself too seriously. Ooh, here's a big one. Chernobyl. Chernobyl, Chernobyl, Chernobyl. Gotta go with mixed. I'm gonna put it behind Back to the Future. Chernobyl's a weird one because they have some scenes that are quite realistic that I'd expect to see in front of like a health physics brief to completely insane stuff that you'd see in Atomic Twister. So they cover the full spectrum here. So Chernobyl's probably going to end up going dead center. And I don't like that they showed it that way. I know I've mentioned this in my Chernobyl reviews. At the time of this, I haven't actually seen episode 5 yet, so that may sway some things, but I have seen 1 through 4, and a pretty wide range of anything from mostly realistic to totally unrealistic, so it's gotta go in the middle. China Syndrome. Pretty silly, but they did at least use a real control room. It didn't reflect the reactor that was used, and they had some context. Right now I'm going to go ahead and stick them in fairly. Nothing else is there, so let's go ahead and go with just fairly unrealistic for now. And come back to this guy, though. The very titular China Syndrome part, though, is under totally unrealistic. So I'll stick them there. We'll come back to it. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Let's see. Probably one of my least popular videos, very early on in my YouTube career. If you want to check it out, go right ahead, but don't expect much. They do some of the classic things involving saying the reactor's about to go critical when the cooling tower explodes, which has nothing to do with the actual reactor. I'm gonna put you in mostly unrealistic between Armageddon and Generals here. I've never even played that game. Let me know if it's any fun or not. I don't know. Call of Duty 4 I've played, the classic Modern Warfare. The explosion looked cool. People wouldn't survive, and the shockwave looked kind of cool. But they just put that in to show the horrors of it. I'll maybe put it behind Chernobyl. It was mixed. The explosion effects were good, but you wouldn't have survived that helicopter crash to be able to do it. So, mixed. Oh, the Hulk. Oh my god, the Hulk. This is the one from 2003. I don't know anyone who's actually really seen this movie. In this situation, a guy blocks gamma radiation, which is green, which is pretty bad. And so we should have had 2 Hulks, because gamma radiation just passes straight through 2 people. So I think we're gonna go ahead and go with, is it more realistic than Atomic Twister? Atomic Twister never had the sickening green glow, but Atomic Twister had so much wrong with plant operations. Because I just reviewed this clip from the Hulk and not the entire movie, I guess I'll put it in front of it, because Atomic Twister had so many attempts and they were wrong every single time. Whereas the Hulk, this was just one isolated incident, but it's still totally unrealistic. Independence Day. The nuclear stuff. So then we all know the movie's pretty unrealistic, using Windows 95 to hack an alien spacecraft. But the nuclear stuff, I'm gonna stick him behind Bill Wurtz and fairly realistic for now, because we don't really see the aftermath of the nukes, and I think it's realistic that a nuke wouldn't do anything to an alien ship. The ship exploding at the end could possibly be hand-waved in that wasn't a nuclear explosion, that was hitting a critical spot in the alien spacecraft that had nothing to do with the nuke. They could have just crashed the spaceship into it and probably have triggered that kind of effect. So, I'm also heavily biased because Independence Day is one of my favorite movies. So please tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Oh, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Hiding in a fridge. Where does this go? Definitely down here somewhere. I'm actually gonna put him, if it'll let me. Hold on. I'm gonna put him in the front of mostly unrealistic. It was unrealistic, but the explosion was accurate in that they showed the thermal pulse before the shockwave, which is realistic. So it's not totally unrealistic. But the whole fridge thing, completely unrealistic. You could even argue that Indiana Jones, since he took the, not the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail. He drank from the Holy Grail in the previous movie. That gave him a little bit of extra survivability to nuclear weapons. So, there you go. Top of mostly unrealistic. Kyle Hill stuff. Mostly realistic. We have a new frontrunner. He does very well researched videos that, in one case, even showed me something that I didn't even know about. That, like, the one test involving that nuked 5 guys just to prove a point. He uses a lot of primary sources, which is great. I've done a few of his videos, and I don't think I've even corrected him. It's more of I've just delved deeper into what he already showed, which, yeah, that's how you get to mostly realistic. Kurzgesagt. Gonna move you to the top of fairly realistic. Kurzgesagt's very good. Another one of my popular series. It's of reaction videos, that is. Kurzgesagt, they explain things at a high level and beautifully sewn. So you can't be mostly realistic if you're gonna do high level explanations, but the way they explain things is so good. Again, this isn't my list in terms of favoritism. Just because you're mostly realistic doesn't mean you're my favorite, though I do like Kyle Hill's stuff a lot, but Kurzgesagt's been one of my favorite series, and yeah, I'd say it's fairly realistic. There's a few things that were a little out there that needed filling in, like the detonating all the bombs at once. That's extremely hard to do, not impossible, but one nuke would probably just destroy the rest of them, to be honest. And when they nuked a city, they used a very weird nuke. Not unrealistic, but it's just a weird situation. 3 megaton surface. It's kind of weird. But most of their stuff, pretty accurate, pretty realistic. This one didn't really translate well when I had to make it into a square, so you probably can't see it too good. That's melodysheep, the guy that did the Journey to the End of Time. I thought that was really cool. And based on relatively recent theories, I think it's fairly accurate. They did a good explanation of what Hawking radiation was. I'll put him between Kurzgesagt and Bill Wurtz. Independence Day is starting to look out of place. I may need to reassess. MinuteEarth. Reasonably accurate. Not at the same level as Kurzgesagt. A few things that I wasn't quite sure about with their explanation of nuclear winter. I think they may have exaggerated the effects of the black soot, from hitting cities as opposed to the countryside, but that's one that the bars of uncertainty are huge. Nuclear winter's exaggerated in the public eye, mainly because a lot of people think of it as an on-off switch when there are various levels of it. Like, you can look at volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts as examples of that throughout history. What's nice is you can even go before recorded history and into prehistoric times to look at the geologic records and show that, yeah, there's just a lot of levels of it. Nuclear winter's not an on-off switch, but other than that, I thought it was fairly realistic. I'll put him above Independence Day. Neil Halloran did a lot of detail for one person. He did the one bomb, one city, how many would die, as well as the estimating deaths in a nuclear war. I'm not sure if he's higher or lower than Kyle Hill or not, but it's definitely up there. Again, I just expanded on a few things. No outright corrections were really needed in those videos. Red Alert 2. Red Alert 2. I loved this game as a kid. One of my favorite games, but they do the sickening green glow with nuclear infantry, a guy in a suit that can have radiation destroy tanks, and yet it can't destroy buildings for some reason. But they at least they show that nuclear weapons are at least destructive. So, is it more unrealistic than Generals? I would say yes, because Generals doesn't have guys in radiation suits that have this big green glow cannon of death. But I think it's more realistic than the Hulk. The Hulk gets so many things wrong in such a short period of time. This one, you might not recognize this logo, but that's Ridddle with 3 Ds. The guys that did that infamous, we'll split the planet in half if we detonate a nuke in the Marianas Trench. They didn't get anything right in their video, so they definitely belong here. Between Hulk and Atomic Twister, are they more unrealistic than Atomic Twister? I'm gonna put them in between because Atomic Twister, that is something that I probably have the highest level of expertise in, more than very few people in this world. And I don't mean to brag, it's just I'm a nuclear engineer and I specialized in core design and operations. So I know everything to absolutely tear apart Atomic Twister based on my operational knowledge, because that's what that movie was about, and they failed hard. I even got a few comments about this from other nuclear operators that they would show this in between taking our annual tests for requalification. Sometimes I'd watch this movie. Atomic Twister was actually one of my first requests. I could say I was requested that back in 2017 after I finished license class, so long before YouTube, but there you have it. So real life lore, talking about Chernobyl, they talked that it was still a big problem. Where do they go? I actually think real life lore is more realistic than the Chernobyl miniseries. Let's see. I'll put them at the top of mix. They do a few bit of accurate stuff, but when it comes to nuclear, I think they were just a bit off in terms of Chernobyl. They did at least show some of the modern safe storage, the safe storage hangar-like structure that they put over the sarcophagus to just add that extra layer of protection. So that was good, but they were a bit more off. Roblox. Roblox could go literally anywhere because anyone can mod it. No. This is specifically referring to the Roblox nuclear plant disaster meme video. I really want to put it in front of Chernobyl. I really want to, because they got a few things pretty accurate that I was not expecting in Roblox, and that was They included the turbine building, heat exchangers that were outside of the reactor area. The control room was not in the reactor building. Things that you would expect a lot of people to get wrong, but they didn't. They're not more realistic than Chernobyl. They're as much as I would like them to be. The HBO Chernobyl series is more realistic than Roblox. I gotta give them that. I put them over here with China Syndrome. They're looking kind of lonely there. I'll put them ahead of China Syndrome just because there's so much more than what I expected from Roblox. Yeah, it's pretty unrealistic, but they did a pretty good job with that scene. But I wouldn't say they're any more unrealistic than China Syndrome. Sam O'Nella did the funny Thorium video. I really like that video, by the way. That was a really cute way of explaining Thorium. To explain it in such a succinct way, I'm gonna put him over here by MinuteEarth. I thought it was fairly realistic. There were a few things they left out, and a lot of things were a bit more of just semantics. Like, he mentioned that thorium reactors are good and safe, which they are. They're not any more safer than uranium. A lot of his video was accurate, but they had less to do with thorium versus uranium as opposed to modern reactor design versus old reactor design. And also plus to him for bringing up mining. I think it's the only video that I've reacted to that even talked about mining. So, gotta give him points for that. The Simpsons. The Simpsons. Simpsons, you have earned the #1 spot in front of Totally Unrealistic because that you are so hilarious. Yeah. The Simpsons. We all know, I don't need to explain that it's unrealistic. Three-eyed fish, core destruct button, green glow, everything, but they're just so much more entertaining than the other three members sharing the totally unrealistic spot. Now we got Spider-Man 2. This nuclear fusion scene. They're not totally unrealistic because tritium was at least a fuel used for fusion. They're unrealistic about its abundance and about what it would actually look like. This big artificial sun testing it in the middle of a densely populated urban center. Are they more unrealistic than Command & Conquer's green glow cannon guy? Yes. Yes, they are. The artificial sun thing is even more egregious than that, because one's a fun gameplay mechanic, and the artificial sun thing in an urban setting. What Command & Conquer's got going for it is they use this in a war setting, a crazy all-out war between NATO and the Soviet Union. This was done as like a peaceful civilian test thing, which, no. So, that's the one leg that Command & Conquer has over Spider-Man 2. Terminator 2. The nuclear scene. You win the prize of most realistic movie. That was an excellently done nuclear blast. And quite terrifying. Be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. Probably the most realistic nuclear explosion I've ever seen in a movie, period. They get the immediate effect, the blinding flash, the thermal pulse. They show, right gruesomely, Sarah Connor getting blinded, and she's on the edge of the deadly zone. Blinded first, everything getting set ablaze, and then the shockwave coming and completely shattering her skeleton. It's a horrifying scene, but horrifyingly accurate. And then we get to the days. This one didn't really translate too well in terms of converting to squares, but you earned the top spot. Now, most realistic reactor trip scene I've ever seen in any media. Now, I'm only talking about episode 1, because I've only seen episode 1 as of yet. But they did an exceptionally good job showing it. No drama. I think the only scene I brought up that was straight up unrealistic in that movie was during a flood, a plant operator saying, "Dang it." Real plant operators would say something much nastier, but you could say that was the fault of the dubber rather than the actual writer of the show. But, yeah. Now, that doesn't mean it's my favorite. In fact, that's probably part of the reason why they didn't do very well. How many of you have actually heard of the days? Just curious who's watching this video right now and just made it this far into it. Yeah. I didn't even hear about it. I had someone had to point it out to me because those things are usually on my radar, but it just came out, and it's because it's inaccessible for the most part. They use a lot of acronyms and a lot of terminology that you basically have to be a nuclear engineer or reactor operator to know what the hell they're talking about. So they're a bit of a... That's part of the price of being too realistic. And that's why Chernobyl, in its mixed, and I have a problem with their dead center mixed rank because of how misleading they can be by including both a realistic safety brief and clips from The Simpsons or Atomic Twister basically thrown into it and blended together. So, let me know what you think of this rating. I'm gonna see if I need to make any changes. I think it's all good. I know I'm heavily biased by having Independence Day and fairly realistic, so please feel free to tell me how wrong I am about that. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's good. Let me know how you would rank these, though. Again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. This is incredible how fast this is happening. I am truly over the moon to have such an amazing and supportive fan base as you guys right now. This is truly incredible. I'm even more excited to continue to share knowledge and teach more about nuclear power by reacting to a bunch of more goofy, serious, and crazy videos out there for you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.